evening who are joining us from Egypt. We really appreciate you being here today. I am Steve Lutz, Vice President of Middle East at the Chamber and Executive Director of our U.S.-Egypt Business Council. And I want to begin by welcoming back our distinguished guest, our distinguished speaker, His Excellency, Dr. Mohamed Maait, the Minister of Finance for the Arab Republic of Egypt. And Your Excellency, it's always great to see you, and we're delighted to have you with us today. We're pleased to be hosting this meeting in partnership with our good friends from AmCham Egypt Inc. And I'm joined today by their CEO and our friend and partner, Hisham Fahmy. And of course, from our team here, the Council's manager, Anna Burris, and our Egypt Council fellow, Ahmed Farid, as well. Before I turn it over to Hisham for some welcome remarks, I do want to acknowledge that while the global community continues to face uncertainty and challenging times, at the U.S.-Egypt Business Council, we do feel very optimistic, and we're encouraged about the shared future as we begin to emerge from this pandemic. And despite any ebbs and flows in the political relationship between our two countries, we're very excited about one of the essential pillars that continues to sustain us, and that is the economic ties between the United States and Egypt. And the companies that were joined today, Your Excellency, I can say, remain absolutely committed to Egypt's economic success and a strong U.S.-Egypt partnership. And I trust that our friends in Egypt know that you'll always have a friend and partner in the U.S. Chamber, the U.S.-Egypt Business Council, and of course at AmCham Egypt Inc. In this regard, I do want to acknowledge and thank the leadership of our council, our chair Apache, and our vice chairs, Bechtel, BP, PepsiCo, and Uber, and our many, many companies who stand up for this relationship as members of the U.S.-Egypt Business Council. Also want to thank our friends in government for their support, because what we do wouldn't be possible. And the collaborative approach that you all take is absolutely key. And it basically begins with both ambassadors, Ambassador Zaran and Ambassador Cohen, and their outstanding teams, and extends across many departments and ministries in both governments, certainly including the Ministry of Finance. And you know that there has been real progress on the economic front under the leadership of President Sisi and yourself. And despite the many challenges that have arisen from COVID-19, we commend you for going through the difficult work of advancing Egypt's reform agenda, which we're hopeful will put Egypt on a path of sustained economic growth and fiscal stability. Of course, we always know that there's more work to be done, but in the interest of time, I do want to turn to Hisham Fahmy, our friend from AmCham Egypt Inc., to hear his welcoming remarks before Your Excellency, we introduce you for your keynote. Hisham, if I could turn it to you, please.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Minister. It's great to see you again. And I would like to take this moment to thank you for attending our annual general meeting last month at the National Museum of Egyptian Civilizations and welcoming our new Board of Governors for 2021 to 2023. It was a real pleasure to have you. As you embark on the many changes in your ministry to streamline all the processes, there are invariably many questions that arise from the application of the new system, like the VAT, the electronic invoicing, NAFISA for customs clearance. We look forward to you sharing all the updates for those exciting changes. And maybe we can have some time for feedback from our members here. Welcome again, always great to see you. And maybe we'll see you in Washington in October, or I'll come back and see you. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hisham. Your Excellency, I think you're a stranger to no one on this meeting. But I do want to introduce you and say that, as Hisham said, we do look forward to the day when conditions allow for to host you back in Washington, as we've done before, and we look forward to that day. His Excellency Mohamed Maait has played really a central role in Egypt's economic rise and really steering the economy through what has been a difficult period here with the pandemic. Prior to his appointment and as Minister of Finance, he held several roles at the Finance Ministry, including Vice Minister of Finance for Public Treasury Affairs and Head of Economic Justice, as well as the first Deputy Minister of Finance. He's a well-respected thought leader across many disciplines. The minister had also served as the first Deputy Minister of Health and Population. In addition to his robust career in government, the minister has worked as a senior lecturer for over 30 years, teaching and research at many universities, and that includes in Egypt, Sudan, Great Britain, and Scotland. So we're delighted, Your Excellency, to have you with us again today in this virtual setting. We look forward to hearing from you, and all please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Minister of Finance, Dr. Maait. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steve, the Executive Director of U.S. Egyptian Business Council, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And thank you, Mr. Hisham Fahmy, CEO of MCHAM. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you, thank you U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Egypt Business Council for organizing this event. Both institutions have always been advocates for American firms to come and invest in Egypt, a role that we appreciate and we remain ready to support whenever needed. Let me start by walking you briefly through our economic situation before the COVID-19 pandemic and how Egypt was able to successfully demonstrate its economic resilience. Since the inception of the Egyptian reform program, our economy has been a steady growth path, and the overall state of affairs in the Egyptian economy has improved significantly. The unfortunate spread of the pandemic led to the slowdown of the global economic activity, but also posed a burden on the state budget, whereby demanding additional spending to address the challenges and the setback brought about by the pandemic, especially in the health sector, as well as the heavily affected sectors such as tourism, civil aviation, and trade. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Egyptian government has provided a comprehensive set of well-targeted and timely measures to combat the negative effect of the pandemic. This was done to ensure physical and monetary sustainability while providing adequate support to the most vulnerable sector of the economy, such as health, education, tourism, and export-dominated industries. A stimulus package worth of 100 billion Egyptian pound, about 2% of GDP, has been allocated to support the economy, individuals, and sectors affected in the face of the pandemic. Therefore, we are slightly deviated from our announced targets, and therefore, I would like to share with you our latest macroeconomic development in the face of the pandemic. I will go through the macroeconomic situation and the impact of COVID-19, Egypt's response to the COVID-19 outcomes so far, the fiscal outcomes and 2021-2022 budget highlights, Egypt's economic reform beyond the pandemic, and the structural reform for some elements. Let me start by the GDP. The Egyptian economy has been growing at a strong levels pre-COVID-19, with growth reached 5.6% in 2018-2019, and targeted 6% in 2019-2020. However, the pandemic slowed down the growth levels, yet we were still able to grow in the 2020 and the 2021 due to the balanced and effective government stimulus packages and adopted policies. If it wasn't the COVID-19, Egypt economy would have expanded by 5.8% in the financial year 2019-2020 and more than 6% in the financial year 2020 to 2021. And for the current financial year, which will finish next week, we are expecting a GDP growth of 2.8, and for next year, we are estimating something between 5.4 to 5.6. Despite the COVID-19 implication, we were able to continue our fiscal consolidation path, yet at a slower rate. The overall deficit declined from 12.5% of GDP in 2015-2016 to 8.1% in 2018-2019. Primary balance also switched from a deficit of 3.5% of GDP to a surplus of almost 2% before COVID-19. However, due to the balanced approach and maintaining of reform momentum, we were able to continue and safeguard fiscal position during this global shock. And as you can see, from 12.15 in year 2015-2016, this year we are expecting to finish 7.7 or even 7.6. For next year, which will start next week, we will be targeting 6.3. We're aiming to be below 5.5% in the next 2 years. Primary balance, we are expecting this year to finish around 1.1% surplus, primary balance surplus, and next year we will be targeting 1.5% primary surplus. Egypt succeeded to bring down also the budget sector debt to GDP by 18% in just 2 years. 18% in 2 years. And before COVID-19, we were expecting to bring our debt to GDP by 25% in 3 years. From the 108% in year 2016-2017, we were expecting to be at 83% in year 2019-2020. But unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we finished at 87.5%. And this year and next year, we are expecting to be below 90%, but something between 88 to 89.5%. This is what we are expecting this year and next year. Annual headline inflation reached a low of 4.8% in May 2021, with an annual core inflation continue to record low levels worth of 3.4% in May, and food prices also slightly increased by 0.3%, but again, it is going down in general. And also the food inflation for us is a key to maintain living conditions of lower and middle income groups, and hence contributing to social stability. The Central Bank of Egypt is putting the target for the inflation to be 7% plus or minus 2%. So we think that we even below the Central Bank of Egypt target of inflation. For Egypt, the second item, Egypt response to COVID-19. The government of Egypt proactively designed a balanced policy framework to deal with the COVID-19 implications, with various measures adopted to dampen the negative impact of the economy and people's living standard and the incomes. Egypt President announced the stimulus package worth of 100 billion Egyptian pound back in April 2020 last year to manage implication of COVID-19, which was, as I said, 2% of GDP. And we adopted target actions addressing most vulnerable sectors and households, being transparent with ongoing and open communication with the public, adopt a balanced approach to strike balance of supporting the economy, but avoiding creating fiscal and debt imbalances. Use temporary measures to allow proper exit and readjustment as needed. Several targeted measures were announced and implemented to provide adequate support to the vulnerable and most affected sectors and segments. For example, more than 100 million Egyptian pound of stimulus and support measures have been spent on support industrial and export sectors, health sector, tax relief to most affected sectors, social protection to the most vulnerable households. As we can see, the total which was spent over the two financial year, 2019-2020 and 2020 to 2021, we can see that health sector was more than 17 billion out of the 100. Support to vulnerable sector like industry, export, tourism, culture, aviation, contractors was the majority, around 65 billion. Other support to small and medium enterprises, support to vulnerable groups and financing easing, support to other sector. All of these represented the 2% of GDP stimulus package.
Mr. Minister, if I may, I don't think the slides are, I think the slides are not advancing. I think your team has the cue on the to the slides.
Okay.
Which slide? Your momentum.
Which slide is seen now in front of you, please?
We're still on the title slide.
No? في حد عندنا في خليه يتفضل. Okay, we'll see how to fix this. If it is from our side. طب وليه مش قاعد معانا؟ يقعد معانا. السلايد ما بتتحركش عندهم. السلايدز ما بتتحركش عندهم. I think if we exit and bring it down.
There we go.
Again. Okay.
You can see
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, we are in page 11. I'm sorry for that.
No worries. You were on a roll, and sorry to interrupt. So, but very good. We're all set now.
Okay, I'll continue with page 11. But please let me know if this problem comes back again. So government priority has been to support Egypt manufacturer and exporters. Ministry of Finance collaborated with the Ministry of Trade and Industry to pay back exporters all due amounts related to export subsidies. And I believe just on Thursday, we've paid more than 5 billion. Only Thursday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, we paid more than 5 billion Egyptian pound on that. And for 1 year, we paid around 30 billion in export subsidy in order to support our exporter and our industries. The cabinet approved 6 initiatives to help reduce the accumulated arrears with more than 25 billion pound. Ministry of Finance incurred the cost of reducing electricity tariff. We reduced the electricity tariff and also the natural gas cost to $4.5 US dollar per million MMBTU. And this cost is a budget of around more than 10 billion Egyptian pounds. So all of these were to support our industries and exporters. If we look at the outcome so far from all the measures, I hope the slides now is going on. Okay, thanks. The Egyptian economy has shown notable resilience during the pandemic. Egypt was the only country to grow in the MENA region in 2020 and was among few emerging markets to grow last year at a time when global economy contracted by 3.3%. The stimulus package and associated policies, along with national mega projects, pushed the unemployment rate to decline to 7.2% in December 2020. By the way, immediately with COVID-19, our unemployment jumped from 7.6% to close to 10%. With all the measures we've made, it went down again to 7.2% in December 2020, which was also the lowest level since 2010. So if we look at real growth rate, as I mentioned, we achieved 3.6% last year. This year, we are expecting 2.8, and next year between 5.4 to 5.6%. If we look at the position of Egypt with regard to real growth, Egypt was the highest. I believe we were the highest with a few countries around the world to achieve 3.6% GDP growth last year in 2020. Also, unemployment rate, as I said, declined to 7.4%. If we look at Egypt, outperforming peers with regard to primary balance, while also balanced fiscal policy adopted led to an average size of overall deficit as a percentage of GDP. Primary balance for this year, which will finish next week, we finish the financial year on 3rd of June. We are expecting to achieve 1.1% primary balance, which I believe we might be one of the very few countries around the world to achieve a primary balance or a primary surplus of 1.1%. Even the government deficit is still in declining, because before the COVID-19, we were 8.2% the overall deficit. With last year, on 6th of June, it was reduced, declined to 7.9%. This year, we are expecting to decline further to 7.7 or 7.6%. And I believe Egypt was positioning itself also in a good position compared to similar countries to us. If we look at also with regard to, again, the primary balance to group of countries, developed countries achieved negative 9.3% primary balance. Emerging economies and achieved negative 4.7%, Middle East and North Africa, negative 3.7%, developing economies, negative 3.8%, Latin America, negative 2.4%, Egypt is positive 1.1% primary surplus, and the same for government deficit. We are in the middle between the two groups, the different groups of countries. If we look at general government debt, which last year, as I said, was 87.5%. This year, we are expecting to be somewhere between 89.5%. We have to wait for the final calculations, but still Egypt in the middle of the table in front of you between similar countries to us. But with the change in government debt, we are one of the best to achieve a change in government debt. As I said, in 2 years, we reduced our debt from 108% to 90.2% in 2 years. And we were expecting in the 3rd year to go to 83. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, we reduced the debt to GDP, but to 87.5%. If we look at also credit to private business sector is picking up, which is a sign of improvement, improved private business activities. FDI inflows decline in light of COVID-19 global implication, and mainly as inflows to the oil and the gas sector declined. However, net inflows to the manufacturing sector increased during April to September 2020 by 82%, and also for telecommunication by 82% and by 60%. And also IT communication also increased this period by 125.7%. A nice graph which we presented in the IMF. The IMF presented this graph. This graph, it says that we were mature in our spending through the COVID-19. The IMF reported that Egypt government and Ministry of Finance targeted and effective stimulus articulated within the realm of fiscal responsibility. As such, Egypt is amongst the few countries globally to roll out fiscal consolidation measures proactively to offset crisis spending, such as the Corona tax. This graph, it says that we were very efficient in our spending compared to what we achieved as GDP growth through the COVID-19 period. This has been coupled with enhanced institutional strengths. And let me say that the 8th most improved country globally for government effectiveness was Egypt, and the first most improved country for government effectiveness in B category, and the second in Middle East and Central Asia, according to the World Bank and the IMF. If we look at Egypt is the only country in Africa, and the Middle East that maintain its credit rating confirmation with a stable outlook by all 3 credit agencies. Moody's said Egypt's credit profile is supported by its track record of economic and fiscal reform implementation, balanced against large funding requirements and weak debt affordability. Its broad domestic funding base and robust foreign exchange reserve that exceed external debt payments provided a buffer against significant capital outflow from emerging markets in the wake of coronavirus. The same Fitch said Egypt's rating and outlook are supported by its recent track record of fiscal and economic reform, which the authorities are furthering, as well as its large economy, which has demonstrated stability and resilience through the global health crisis. The same said Standard & Poor's. If we look at also the comment about Egypt from the IMF said over the past 12 months, the authorities' strong performance and commitment helped achieve the progress objectives, maintaining macroeconomic stability during the pandemic while protecting necessary social and health spending and implementing key structural reform. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, Egypt is the only economy across all regions in which the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development invests that is expected to escape recession in 2020, driven partly by large public construction project and boom in the telecommunication sector. Also, the appreciation from the World Bank Group, President David Malpass. If we look at the fiscal year, which will start next week, 2021-2022 budget, I would like to give you some highlights about it. We are expecting in the new financial year, 2021-2022, which will start next week, we are expecting our revenue, total revenue, will increase by 22%. By the way, this year, the COVID year, our total revenue is approximately increasing by 17%. Also, we lost total revenue in some sector, like tourism sector, civil aviation, hotels, and many other. We lost around 170 billion Egyptian pounds this year, and last year 200 billion Egyptian pounds. However, we are expecting that this year our total revenue will increase by 17%. The year which will finish next week. The year which will start at the end of next week, we are expecting our total revenue to grow by 22%, our expenditure to grow by around 14%, and we are expecting, as I said, overall fiscal deficit 6.7% and primary surplus of 1.5%. As we can see that we are expecting that we will continue declining on overall deficit, budget deficit, and we are expecting that even our debt to GDP will continue to be declining starting from year 2022-23. But for next year, we think we're going to stabilize. This year and next year, we're going to stabilize debt to GDP a little bit. But from year 22-23, our debt to GDP will start on a declining again. Also, if we look at the debt service, the interest payment is on a declining mode as well. If you look at interest payment, which reached 40% of our expenditure, this year will finish 35% interest to total expenditure, and the new financial year 21-22, it will be 31%, which on a declining mode. Even as a percentage of GDP, interest payment, which reached 10% in year 2018-2019, is in a declining mode. This year, we will finish debt interest rate to GDP around 8.8. Next year will be around 8%. The budget will aim to supporting economic activities, especially manufacturing and export, maintaining fiscal discipline and sustainability of government debt, promoting social protection and improving the standard of living of our citizens, focusing on human capital development, especially health and education. Some of the initiatives for the new budget, we allocated 2.1 billion to replace all the cars and the microbuses with new natural gas vehicles locally manufactured. We are allocating 10 billion to lower energy prices, including gas, natural gas, and electricity. We allocated 14 billion Egyptian pound to support the export subsidies for our exporters. And also, we putting in place a new VAT refund system, which will ensure that we refund VAT very quickly. We are allocating 358 billion to finance government investment, public investment, which is an increase of around 40%. Also 80 billion for upgrading rural areas and villages across Egypt. Also 12.1 billion to upgrade rural irrigation system and canals to enhance agricultural productivity. 109 billion spending on health sector. Also 19 billion to finance social assistance, takaful and karama. 180 billion annual installments to pension fund to support our pension fund financing. 360 billion for additional wages to government employees. Also, this year will witness JP Morgan index inclusion. I will talk about this later. Let me go to page 32 before I come back to page 31. In page 32, Egyptian government and the Ministry of Finance priority over the medium term is to support a strong, inclusive private sector-led economic recovery. Additionally, or additional incentives would be provided to make sure that the economy recovery would be diversified, green, and generating adequate, productive job, especially for the youth and women. The government of Egypt announced its comprehensive structural reform program that focus on easing business environment and enhancing competitiveness of the Egyptian economy, especially manufacturing, agriculture, and the IT sectors, as well as export-led activities. The following slides provide numerical target of key economic indicators over the medium term. GDP growth, which in page 31, I'm sorry, we'll go back page 31. GDP growth, increase real GDP growth to 5.4% year 21-22 and 6% year 23-24. Job creation, adequate job creation to reduce unemployment rate, reduce youth unemployment, and create more decent jobs. We need to create close to 1 million new jobs because we have about 1 million new young people going to the labor market every year looking for jobs. Fiscal discipline, maintain and safeguard fiscal discipline to reach an overall deficit below 5.5% of GDP by year 23-24, primary surplus of 2% of GDP, and 84.5% debt to GDP ratio. Manufacturing and export, we will target support of economic activity to boost the manufacturing sector, promote export, and pave the road for private sector to lead. Investment policy, increase public investment to improve infrastructure and human capital and to crowd in private investment. Social protection, ensuring the support of the underprivileged and improving standard of living of citizens while making sure that Egypt growth is inclusive. I will continue to page 33. To achieve these objectives and target, the Ministry of Finance would adopt a balanced approach, including the following policies. Institutionalize and safeguard macroeconomic and fiscal stability by adopting a new modern public financial management law, along with annual updated medium-term debt and revenue strategies. Accelerate for automation of the government payment and receipt to enhance and optimize business process and financial inclusion as well. Reduce cost of doing business, enhance transparency, and reduce tax evasion and tax avoidance. Widen our tax base through effective measures and policies, including incentivizing the formalization of the informal sector, adopting modern risk management practices, and bringing to the tax net growing activities such as electronic commerce and digital services. Widen the tax base by increasing the ratio of non-sovereign tax to GDP by 2% over the coming 4 years period. This would be done through new measures to modernize policies and administrative procedures, including full digitalization and automation of the entire process, which we have already introduced. Electronic tax reporting, also electronic e-tax, electronic e-invoices, and also we introduced from 3rd of January this year the electronic tax procedures. And in the coming few weeks, we will announce about e-receipt, the electronic receipt, for ensuring that this will help us to formalize the informal sector. So a lot of digitalization and automation of our tax system. This will help us to increase tax revenue. I have to say to you, we have increased our tax collection since the 1st of July last year until now by more than 15% with COVID-19 negative impact. We have increased our tax revenue collection by 15%, not by increasing tax rate, it's only by automation. By automation, we are widening the tax base, we are making inclusion of those who were not included, and also trying to bring some of the informal sector. I believe Egypt has a very good chance to, with the automation of the tax system, to double its total tax revenue in few years. We are targeting next year to increase our tax revenue by around of 17–18% without increasing any tax rate, without making any changes to our tax system. It's just by automation and bringing those who are not paying tax because of tax system which paper-based and a lot of inefficiency. So increasing efficiency, automation, introducing many electronic systems has a very good chance for Egypt to double its total tax revenue. Announce new simplified system for VAT refund that is simple. This will be very good because it will ensure that we refund the VAT in just a few weeks rather than what we do now in few months. Continue implementation of tailored incentive programs to support manufacturing, agriculture, and export-led activities. Programs would have clear KPIs and adjusted tailored to achieve intended objectives. Continue diversification of funding sources and enhancing liquidity and competition of domestic market, while also extending our debt profile to reach almost 5 years to reduce refinancing risk and bring down cost of borrowing. We have increased the average term, the average length of our debt from 1.3 years. This year, we are expecting to finish around 3.6 years. And we are targeting to have an average period of our debt to be 5 years on average. Structural reform will include the following. We will include what we call it public finance management system, a new BFM law to strengthen the entire budget with the following pillars covered. A fiscal responsibility provisions that will guide macro fiscal policy, mandating medium-term budget framework to all budget entities, highlighting main elements for the budget calendar, monitoring the minimum content to be covered by budget documents, provide robust provisions on reallocation of resources, managing contingency reserve, and asking for supplementary appropriation, setting accounting rules for all public entities, including economic authorities. Also, we have drafted already what is called medium-term revenue strategy, MTRS, for revenue mobilization, support targeted primary surplus, and enable creating room for priority spending on health, education, social protection. MTRS identifies a range of institutional and compliance reform for both the tax and custom agencies, as well as tax policies to increase revenue by 2% of GDP over the coming 4 years. MTRS reflects post-COVID-19 outlook in revenue and expenditure and has been reviewed and approved by the cabinet by the end of December 2020. Additional support was received from the IMF, World Bank, and other IFIs, including the OECD, on international tax and digital economy issues. In the meantime, creating revenue measures from the MTRS have been embedded in the financial year 2021. We also have drafted medium-term debt strategy. The strategy has been published by end December 2020 with key target amounts, including reducing gross borrowing needs to be below 30% of GDP and bring down debt to GDP to be below 85% by June 2024. The strategy is updated and revised on an annual basis. This is particularly important given that financial and economic conditions are likely to be more uncertain in the post-COVID-19 environment. We are also working to meet the requirements to make domestic currency debt eligible to be settled through Euroclear, which we will join this year, in order to open the domestic market to a large audience of foreign investors, and expect to have completed this process by the third quarter of 2021. Recently, JP Morgan announced that Egypt has fulfilled all needed requirements to be added to the watch list in preparation for its inclusion in its global bond index. And I believe this will be in less than 5 months. And we will be the only 2 countries around the world in that index, in Africa and Middle East. The only 2 countries will be Egypt and South Africa in this index. In April, JP Morgan has put Egypt on the watch list for the following, that index. And also JP Morgan bond index of emerging market global diversified with an estimated weight of 1.78%. Also JP Morgan environmental, social, and governance index. This is what I would like to say. By the end, I would like to say that Egypt and the United States of America have maintained excellent relations for a long time. We are keen to develop this win-win relation. Both countries share the common goal of promoting economic prosperity, stability, and peace in the MENA region. In addition to our military cooperation, Egypt has a robust bilateral economic relationship with the United States of America. For example, flows of US direct investment to Egypt were $1.37 billion in 2019, bringing the accumulated long-term stock of US FDIs to nearly $24 billion. Moreover, Egypt and the United States of America have signed a trade and investment framework agreement, a step toward creating free trade and increasing investment flows. American firms are active in Egypt in most sectors for the Egyptian economy, including oil and gas exploration and production, financial service, manufacturing, construction, telecommunications, and information technology, and restaurant and hospitality industry. We look forward to seeing more and more American firms and investment in Egypt, creating job opportunities for our young people, transforming technologies and know-how hand in hand with Egyptian investors, flourishing this win relationship. I would like to thank you for your time and your attention, and apologize for the long presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you. That was very comprehensive. And you really walked us through, where Egypt was at pre-COVID, through COVID, and where your aspirations lie moving forward. And we really do appreciate that. And it's really, to be praised for the progress that's been made And really the numbers speak for themselves. And what's interesting in my mind is that behind the numbers are real businesses and real people. To know that Egypt has fared as well as it has coming through the pandemic, really is a credit, to the administration and yourself included as part of that. And I know U.S. companies, that's why we're here today. And we know that the progress that you've made, and we want to continue, as you kind of ended on your note, with a increased, deeper, more dynamic relationship economically between the U.S. and Egypt. It's been solid over the last 4 decades plus, but we certainly can do more going forward, and using platforms like the TIFA to build on that. And I would have to say, when you think about it, it is a really big challenge, to generate, over 1 million new jobs a year, to meet the new entrants to the workforce. So know that the U.S. business community stands ready to work with you to help achieve that and have that partnership. Well, Your Excellency, I think what we'd love to do is, with this remaining time, I know we had a few companies that were in contact with us that had expressed interest in offering a comment, posing a question. And I'd like to call first I see he's on my screen, Todd Wilcox from HSBC. We're first out of the gate with a comment or question. Todd?
Thank you, Stephen. Your Excellency, thank you for the presentation. What I wanted to ask a bit is just to explore a little bit more where you see the opportunities for foreign companies coming into Egypt in this new environment, right? With your focus on education, on health, on green and technology. Where do you see companies coming in? What should we be looking for and anticipate?
Can I reply?
Yes. Apologies. Yes, by all means, please.
Okay. I believe we have many industries and many sectors which we are very much interested. Transportation is taking very much care from the president, from the government. Manufacturing, particularly car manufacturing, electronics, textile, also IT and telecommunications are sectors which we believe Egypt can have some sort of advantages. This is besides gas and oil exploration, all of that. So again, we have many sectors. We have spent hugely in infrastructure. Egypt now have sorted out many of its problems in infrastructure, like electricity, natural gas, network of roads and bridges, tunnels, and all of that. Egypt, over the last few years, has built more than 15 new cities, including the new administrative capital, which we're going to move in a few weeks too. So let me say that we think that these sectors I mentioned will be the sectors which we will be looking for. And also, if I add, I would say desalination, because we have the issue of water. So investing in desalination will be also one of the top priority. Still, there are some of the infrastructure projects. Renewables, I believe, yes, we interested, but I'm talking about priorities. So renewables are, yes, but if you are asking me about priorities, the sectors and the industries which I mentioned are priorities.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, yes, health and education are very important, particularly that we are rolling out now universal health insurance. We finished one governorate. Next week, we're going to the second governorate, and we have 27 governorates to finish over the coming 8 to 10 years. So universal health insurance will need huge investment, and also in addition to modernization of our education. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think you recapped it good on the priorities. And I know we have many of the companies that are with us today and the members of the council that are working on many of those areas. So we appreciate that. I wanted to turn to a new company, Your Excellency. I believe we were joined by Steve from a Global Ventures Group. You talked about travel and tourism and some of these key projects. And I know they're involved or looking to be involved in one of those. And so, Steve, if I can turn to you, and then I'll ask to please be on deck. Steve?
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your presentation. I think it gives us more confidence as we go in and invest in Egypt. I represent a group called Global Ventures Group. Randy Langer is also on this call, who is the CEO. We are leading a consortium. We're from the Chicago area, but we're leading a US consortium into the final bid proposal for the Sovereign Fund of Egypt's Tahrir Complex project, the Tahrir government building. We have an amazing consortium of US development groups, US investors, and also investors from the United Arab Emirates, and we have a great local partner. We're really looking forward to being in Egypt. We have a couple of teams heading over there early July and also late July, and we would love to have the opportunity to maybe provide a briefing for you and your staff, but we are really looking forward to working on this incredible project. We in Chicago, our group has had a lot of success in renovating and building Chicago historical projects. Now, of course, our historical projects are kind of in the early 20th century, but we do have an excellent track record in doing that. And we look forward to going to Egypt and kind of expanding our success over there. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to receive you. I promise you, if you let us know when you will be in Egypt, I will make sure that we will meet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Minister, you just have to tell Stevie, make sure to bring some of that Chicago deep dish pizza with him.
There you go.
Can't go wrong with that. Next, I'd love to turn, as I mentioned, Your Excellency, on an issue we've brought to your attention before, and that's something that matters deeply here to the U.S. Egypt Business Council and some of our members. Lorraine Hawley from ADM. Lorraine, if I could turn to you, and then Van will come to you next.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for your time here today with us. We very much appreciate it. It's both an honor and a privilege to again have an audience with you. As Steve kindly noted, I represent Archer Daniels Midland Company, a Chicago-based global agribusiness company. We represent, or we operate in 140 countries around the world and employ about 33,000 people. ADM has been one of the significant grain importers in the country of Egypt, and we've long been a partner to Egypt in our efforts to provide reliable, affordable supplies of grain to meet Egypt's domestic demand for food and feed. And I first want to take the opportunity to thank you and the government of Egypt for the quick attention provided to the issue around the VAT on freight, which was initially applied retroactively in July of 2020. You took leadership on this issue and addressed it very quickly, and we do very much appreciate that. As you know, that retroactive application had a potential impact to slow the flow of food and agriculture and constrain the ability to reach Egyptian consumers. So thank you for that. However, I do want to alert you to the fact that we have observed from time to time, again, the application of the retroactive value added tax on freight, even though under your strong leadership, that was eliminated last year. When these situations have arisen, we have successfully disputed them, but they have created some delay in our ability to discharge vessels. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. It seems that the instruction provided has not fully trickled down through various customs authorities, and it would be good to make sure that that does take place so that they are aware of this change in policy. I also want to take the opportunity, and this was mentioned at the beginning of the forum today, to raise our concerns regarding the new NAFESA cargo systems application for grain importation and for the import of other commodities. and to ask for a consideration of a delay in implementation of the system, which is currently scheduled for July 1st. Our main concern is that there is no mechanism to apply the system for bulk cargo shipments, and the Customs Authority has not offered information about how they plan to manage bulk vessels and importations. And for our, our interest, it's around imports of grains and oil seeds, which are critical for the food supply. So our concern as well is that without, clear direction and ambiguity around the application for our shipments, that there could be delays on the import of important commodities in the food and agriculture space, and for perishable food and agriculture products, which are essential in meeting domestic demand for food and feed. These delays could really constrain our ability to reach our consumers and customers, and also lead to potential increases in cost for consumers. So we'd respectfully ask for consideration of consultation with industry to create parameters that can allow for efficient implementation of this process and the system, and then also potentially delay this so that when it is implemented, we are able to navigate this effectively. And I'll leave my comments there for today. Thank you, Your Excellency, again for your time, and look forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you, Lorraine. And let me say that, number one, I will ensure that all our customs and all our ports are applying properly. Number two, I put this in a law, in a change in the draft law. It is in the parliament. They promised us. It is in the parliament since we had last year this meeting. I said, okay, let us put it in the law to make it not taxable. But unfortunately, because of the change of the parliament, by the time we sent it to the parliament was like September, October, and they were preparing for election, but general election. So the old one didn't discuss it, the changes to the law, and the current one, since they came, they are taking the most important, but they promised us that in the coming 2-3 weeks, they will try to push the changes which will ensure that this will not be taxable any time. Number two, I will ensure with my people that this will be not taxable in all ports and with all our customs. I will look after this point with my people. Number two, ACI, the Advanced Cargo Information System. I understand all your concern and I respect it and I will deal with it positively. However, I will have to say to you, I personally and my team, we have been working very hard 6 months to ensure that we are ready. But yes, the other side, our exporters who bring the goods to Egypt might not be ready yet. They might need some more time. They might need some more facilities and all of that. But for me, I personally, and the system and the people, we think that we are ready. However, I accept what you've said. But my question to you, how long do you need further, you think? Given that I'm saying I'm ready.
Thank you. I very much appreciate your comments, both on the VAT and on this other issue. I think that, I've not heard a specific time frame from my colleagues about this. I can certainly revert to them and ask them what they believe would be a sufficient amount of time. I would hesitate to guess during the conversation with you. So if I may, let me please consult with them and get back to you, but I don't think it would be a long period of time. I think it would just be enough time so that there are clear parameters around how bulk shipments are managed, and that we're able to comply with those. I think we very much appreciate the attention to detail that you and your team have provided in crafting this new system. We certainly want to be compliant 100%. And so I think anything that can be provided that would provide clear guidance around what the process would be would would alleviate our concerns.
Given that 1st of July is next Thursday, next
Yes.
week, and if I need to change something, because this is a system not for Egypt only, we are telling our counterparts everywhere in the world that 1st of July is a mandatory time. So if I want to announce that I'm going to delay, I have to announce this week. And this is the reason why I asked you, how long do you think you need? Approximately 1 month, 2 months, less than that amount, more than that amount, because eventually, if I'm going to do that, I have to announce this week. Otherwise, next week will be 1st of July. So this is the reason why I asked you to get a feedback from you about
Yes.
your assessment for how long you want me to delay the introduction of the Advanced Cargo Information System.
Mr. Minister, if I may revert back to you within 24 hours, I will do that if that's okay with you. But I think just having clear parameters are all we need. And we certainly understand that you want to move expeditiously with this, and we want to be 100% compliant.
Okay, and tell them to contact me or my staff, and I'm happy to sit down with them and to meet all their requirements. If they have requirements, definitely I will ensure that I meet all their requirements, and I believe that we can do that very easy.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your Excellency, yes, and to echo Lorraine, thank you for your consideration and for your exchange there, and we'll really grateful for that. If I may, I'll turn to Van from Cargill on a related issue that came up, Your Excellency, with respect to the health insurance that came up in our meeting with President Sisi. Van, if I can turn to you, and then Rob Joyce, I think we'll come to you last.
Hi, Mr. Minister. Van Yiter from Cargill. Nice to see you again. I'd echo what Steve just said. It's really great to have you engage with us and be so proactive and willing to help solve questions and talk about issues very openly and authentically. So yeah, really tip my hat to you for doing that. Thank you very much. The issue I'd raise today is what Steve just said. It's an issue that I think you know about and your team knows about. It's the health insurance tax methodology. It's not a question of whether we support a health insurance tax or not. We think it's a good law. We think it's obviously appropriate that revenues are needed, tax revenues are needed to support the health insurance law. That's not the question. The question we'd like to put in front of your team and yourself, and I think maybe it has been already put there a little bit, is the way it is calculated. Today it's calculated basis sales revenue rather than profit, net profit. And for companies like ours, like Cargill, in a strategic food sector and agricultural sector, the margins are very low. Sales revenues are pretty high, but profit is quite low. So when a tax is computed basis sales revenue, we feel like for us, it puts an unfair burden compared to other industries that have low sales revenue, but very high margins. And so what we've kind of proposed or would like to see your ministry consider, and I think maybe you already are discussing it and have talked about doing an amendment to help make it a more level playing field, is to somehow maybe make it a different tax rate for different industries, or perhaps do it basis net profit rather than revenue, or just find some solution that doesn't lower revenue for the government, because obviously you need the revenue, you want the revenue for the health insurance, but to do it in maybe a more equitable way where low margin businesses like ours aren't carrying too much of the burden. So I'd really be grateful for you and your team and industry group to continue to consider amendments or solutions to make that a more level playing field. So thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much. And I have to tell you what already have been suggested as a change in the law, which is now in the cabinet, and might be in 1, 2, 3 weeks will be going to the cabinet. Number one, the amount you are paying will be deducted from the what is called the tax base amount. So you will be allowed to deduct the amount you've paid for the health insurance solidarity rate as one of your expenses.
Right.
This is number one.
Yeah.
Number two, we are suggesting to the parliament to allow the cabinet to have the authority to remove some of the revenue from being subject to this solidarity rate for health insurance. So to be flexible, but give the flexibility to the cabinet. So the cabinet can say, oh, this type of revenue should not be by this way subject to the solidarity rate for the health insurance. So two measures already introduced and the Prime Minister and the President accepted. Number one, we allow you to deduct it as part of your expenditure, as part of your expenses. Number two, allow the cabinet to have the flexibility to remove some of revenues from being subject to the solidarity rate for health insurance.
Great, great. Well, anything you can do to help level that playing field and is a good thing, because obviously I know the intention is not to make lower margin businesses pay more than higher margin businesses.
No, not at all.
So we appreciate you considering that, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. I was sitting with some of the manufacturers this morning, and I said, this is already suggested. They said, okay, let us move with this for the time being and have this approved by the parliament. And this will help us as a steps towards this, reducing the burden of that on the on the companies.
Understand. Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, again, for your open door policy on these issues and willingness to entertain ideas from industry. We're grateful for that. I did want to turn for our last commenter to Rob Joyce from Koch Industries / Guardian Industries. Rob.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your time, and I'll be brief. Koch Industries, we are a large, diversified company owning diverse sets of interests in Egypt. We have a glass company, Guardian Glass, or the Egyptian glass company, and Infor, also, which is a global leader in business cloud software solutions, as well as some other trading connections to the country. I wanted to mention or just make one comment on our Egyptian glass company, which has developed, I'd mentioned this earlier in a prior call, a study detailing the energy efficiency, financial, and energy benefits that can be achieved if Egypt were to more widespread adopt energy efficient building materials, glass in this case particularly, but applies broadly. And we just hope this information and analysis, which is based very much on Egyptian characteristics and its construction sector, is a useful data point, and we hope contributes to Egypt's priority to drive a more energy efficient sector. And I think that the details and analytical study here just helps to demonstrate that. We've shared this with the Minister of Electricity as well as Housing, and we'd love to share just a few summary findings with you as well. But just, and also this helps attract new investments, we think, as well in our global experience when there's more robust energy efficiency policies and improved standards and such. So just wanted to make that comment. And again, appreciate your time very much, as always. Thank you, Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much, and I'll be very happy if you can send us this document or the information so we can study, and we can have even a call or a video conference together to discuss it with you. I'm happy to do that. So just if we can get some of this information, you said you provided this information to the Minister of Electricity or Ministry of Electricity?
Correct, and
So,
Housing.
Yeah, and Housing, Ministry of Housing, you said?
Yes, correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, if we can, okay, if we cannot get a copy of you, we can ask one of these two ministries to get the document and the information so we can look at it and contact you.
Sure, we'll send you a summary as well, but thank you.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you very much. And we're looking forward for more investment. Look, my job is to sit down with you and listen to you and see how can I help you to help Egypt increasing investment and creating more jobs for our young people. This is my job, and I'm happy to do anything I can do to support that. So thank you very much, and looking forward to have more investment in Egypt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you for that. And I think it really is an interesting idea. It helps, I think, meet the government's ambition to drive a more, green agenda while also bringing cost savings and efficiencies and whatnot. So it couples that together nicely. Before we close out, Your Excellency, of course, would love for you to offer you any final words, but I do want to turn to Hisham for any final comments he may have. And then, Your Excellency, give you the floor one last time for any final thoughts you might want to share.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Just to go back to the issue about the ACI, at AmCham and the Federation, we've collected a few issues that we'll send to you today or actually tomorrow on why we would like to an extension. This is from all the multinationals. It seems for the first time the government is ready and private sector is not ready. So we'd like your patience and maybe help us out on this. But thank you. Always great to see you, and always thank you for your support to the business community and to AmCham especially. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hisham.
Well, Your Excellency, you've covered a lot of things, but if you wanted to summarize or had any final thoughts, please, we would welcome that before we close out.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Steve, and I would like to thank all of you. I'm looking forward as a Minister of Finance in the Egyptian government to look forward for more investment. I think we have good opportunities. I think we are a stable country in the region of Middle East, and I believe that the Egyptian economy has shown a very good resilience and stability. So hopefully this will encourage you all to think about more investment in Egypt and to be our messengers to the American investors and the American community to think about invest more in Egypt. What I promise you also is that all the elements you've mentioned, or the points or the challenges you've mentioned, I will work on them, particularly the ACI, as Mr. Hisham also mentioned. Let's see that we need to think about delay and Lorena as well. So I promise that I will consider this very seriously, and I will make the announcement before the beginning of next week about it. Hopefully this will help. But let me say that we are automating our business environment, tax, customs, budget, and everything in order to ensure that the application of financial inclusion we are doing, and also the reduction of our informal sector, and also ensuring that all of us are compliant with tax system and customs. So thank you again for the time you have given me to be with you today. Thank you, Steve.
Your Excellency, thank you for your leadership. And as Hisham said, thank you for your support and really active engagement with the business community. Sometimes I think with ministers and government officials, we kind of get the lip service, but with you, it is, as Van said, it's very authentic, it's real, and it's meaningful. What you're doing, directly impacts business operations, investment decisions. So we're grateful to have that type of active engagement with you and consideration by you. And that's been true since we've been working with you in this position, and we're grateful for that. Do know that we're always here as a sounding board, as you work through ideas and opportunities, and just know that we stand ready to continue to work with you to meet your ambitions to grow Egypt's economy, and then of course grow the U.S.-Egypt economic relationship as well. So Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today. We do hope to see you soon, either in Washington or in Cairo, and do this in person. And we'll ask Steve to bring the pizza.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you,
Steve.
Your Excellency.
Thank you,
And with
sir.
that, we're adjourned for the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.